everyone. So my name is Emily and this is my channel Books for Life, and thank you so much for being here. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do. So today I'm here to tell you all about the books that I read during the month of May. Now, I did an awesome job, not to pat myself on the back, but I read 11 books this month. How cool is that? 6 of those books were audiobooks and one was a webtoon, but I'm counting it because it took me a couple hours and it was absolutely amazing. And then the other ones were all physical books. So I am going to divide this into 2 parts. I'm going to have one video all about the audiobooks that I read, and the other video is going to be about the one webtoon and then the physical books that I read. So definitely make sure you check out part 2. This one I'm going to talk about all of my physical books, and in a few days I will post about the audiobooks that I read. So before I begin my wrap up, I just quickly want to tell you 5 out of 5 is absolutely amazing. Cannot recommend this enough. Would love to reread and like shout out the rooftops, every single person, like, read this book. 4 out of 5 is a solid read. Really enjoyed it. Maybe a couple flaws. 3 out of 5, this was an average read. Maybe a little bit more flaws than a 4, but a solid, good read. 2 out of 5. And not the book for me, not really feeling it. There's a lot going on that I just disagree with. And 1 out of 5 is, this book sucks, hate this book, do not recommend reading. In my May TBR video, which I'll leave a link above in case you're interested in checking that out, I told you that I was going to do a few things. And one of those things that I told you I was going to do was read the book Dry by Neil and Jared Shusterman. Now, I read this, I absolutely loved this. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars, partly because this is so realistic, it is scary. And to write such a realistic, like, futuristic dystopian novel is amazing that this was done so incredibly well. And I just completely loved this story. I was immersed in this world. I was dying to know what happened. I didn't necessarily love, I'm not saying this is a perfect book. There are definitely some flaws, but really, this was 5 out of 5, absolutely amazing. I actually have a teacher talk video and a review where I go into a little bit more detail about my thinking. I'll leave a link to that above, so if you're interested in checking that out, please do. So that's why I have like little tabbies, because I never have my book. So in case you don't know, this is about a drought that has hit and California has no more water. And so they have like turned off the water to all the public homes and they have to kind of survive, but it becomes like a free-for-all. The area goes into martial law and we follow a few like teenage protagonists as they try to deal with this. I love this book for a few reasons. I love that it has multiple perspectives. So you start with this girl, Alyssa, and it will tell you like whose perspective you're in. And then, it will switch to like her neighbor Kelton, and it will switch to a few other people. And I love how well the multiple perspectives is done here, because that is a tricky thing to do. And I also love that it will like zoom out and it gives like snapshots of other things that happen. So this isn't like an epistolary text, but it's kind of, because it has like news reports and other things like that embedded throughout. And I thought this was really neat because it was really showing the impact that this was having. I love this. 5 out of 5. Definitely check this out if you haven't already. I also told you that I was going to read the first book in the Witcher series, and so this is actually a prequel. There are 2 prequels, I guess, before you actually get to the regular series. And so this is the first one. It's like a series of short stories, and I really enjoyed this. I did find the timeline kind of confusing because it does not go in chronological order. It's like you're following him and what he's doing, but then it will go like have a story that's a flashback, and then it'll go back to present time, or it'll have like 2 flashback stories and then go back to present time. So I did think that was just like a little confusing, and I didn't even pick up on it until like halfway that we were like going back to the same time period. And then I finally noticed like, oh, they're naming all those chapters that are like present time the same thing, the voice of reason. So I knew every time that we went back to the voice of reason, we were in like the present time. So I did find that a little confusing. However, I love this world. I love our main character. I want to know more. This was really quite fascinating because I was not expecting this to like bring in different fairy tales that I know and love. So there's like a short story in here that you could make a connection to Beauty and the Beast. There's a short story that you could connect to Cinderella. There's one about Snow White. I mean, it's not about him, but they have like direct connections to those stories, which I was like, oh, this is so cool. So that really took me by surprise and I absolutely loved it. Note to educators, it's a little steamy, so I wouldn't put this in my classroom library. It'd be like one that I put like behind my desk. So if you know that a parent would be like okay with their child reading this, then that like you could give it to them. But it's not just one I'd have like out there for anyone. So just keep that in mind. But I really enjoyed this, 5 out of 5. I am dying to continue in this series and in this world. And my friend Tom gave this to me. So Tom, if you're watching, thank you so much for introducing me to this world. And I'm so excited. So another thing that I told you I would do, and I've been telling you this each month, is that I want to read books that I've gotten in book boxes that I haven't gotten around to reading yet. And so this month I pulled an uppercase book that I got, I want to say like August or September or October, something like that. It was definitely last fall. And this is Blanca and Roja by Anna Marie McLemore. Surprise! So hi. I was editing my video last night and I didn't love how I explained Blanca y Roja, so I felt like I needed to redo it, and so I am just about to go pick up my son. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna hop on here real quick and like try this again. So sorry for interrupting the regular video, but let's try again. So, okay. Blanca y Roja is a book that I got in a book box, so I met like that challenge with that. This is a fairy tale retelling. So this talks about two different fairy tales. You have Swan Lake, and then you also have Snow White and Red Rose that are like mixed together. And so I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed pieces of it. Like the writing itself was beautiful. This was very like whimsical and lyrical, and she uses a lot of like beautiful poetic elements within it. She has a lot of symbolism, and it is beautiful. But as far as the plot goes, I was just a little bored. So this is about this family, and all of the women in this family are essentially cursed. And so each time a woman in the family has children, she always has 2 girls every single time. It doesn't matter if the girls are twins or if they are years apart. When the youngest one turns 15, the swans come. And the swans decide which one of the 2 girls they are going to take. And when they take a girl, that girl is going to become a swan. So she will forever leave her family behind. And so this has been going on for generations. This is just the way that it is. And these girls just have to like deal with it. Sorry, I have my dog's in the back and she's sneezing. Blanca and Roja are 2 sisters, and they're like, no, swans aren't going to take us. And so like throughout their childhood, they like do things like band together and show that they're going to beat the swan's curse. But the swans come anyway. So it's their story. Like it's really about like sisterly love and like the lengths that you go for your siblings. It has a lot to do with like family here. Like the father and Roja are really, really close. And then the mom and Blanca are really, really close. And like each parent's kind of like rooting for the daughter that they're close with. So like that's an interesting dynamic. Like we know that one of the girls is going to be taken, but I just felt like I kept waiting for something to happen and wasn't happening. So that's why I was just kind of bored throughout the book. Now, this book has amazing representation. First off, the girls are Latina representation. So Blanca has like a lighter toned skin than Roja, and how Blanca is like accepted more in society. She has her blonde hair. She doesn't have the blue eyes though, and that kind of like sets her apart. And then they talk about how Roja has hair that is so red it's almost black. She has like darker skin, and she's not as readily accepted in her community. So there is that, and then there's like the Latina representation, and then also like the different like shades of skin, and how certain shades are, even though they come from the same family, are not as accepted as, as a lighter shade of skin is. So I think that dialogue is really important here. And then there's also LGBTQ representation. We have an older couple. I don't want to like spoil anything. So we have an older couple that is of the same gender, and they are together. And so you know, it's beautiful, it's loving, it's sweet. I love that. We also have a transgender character in here. So there's some great conversations in here about the use of pronouns, about family acceptance. Like this character wants to go by he and she, does not mind being called young man, but does not like to be called young lady. And so I just think that this opens up a great dialogue for like the use of pronouns and how we should just accept each other and how we should have conversations about pronouns and about genders and, you know, and all of that, and that we shouldn't like be afraid to have conversations. Well, hello. So I really did like the representation in this book. I loved the writing in this book. I wanted more from the plot. I was a little bored. So anyway, I just wanted to pop in here and try to explain what this book was about a little bit more. If you read this book, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And back to the regular video. Okay, so the last physical book that I read was Eko North by Joanna Ruth Meyer. And I bought this book in April, or March, one of the two. And I'll leave a link to my book haul video about that up above. And so I was under the impression that this was a Beauty and the Beast retelling, which it is. But it's also East of the Sun, West of the Moon retelling. And there's a little bit of like Fire and Hemlock, which I guess is another story mixed in with this. So this is like a retelling of multiple stories mashed together. And because I was only expecting Beauty and the Beast, I was like kind of thrown when I like encountered other things. I'm like, wait, how does this tie in? And not that they can't like change everything, but because it was like sold to me as a Beauty and the Beast retelling, I was definitely confused when other things began happening. So I liked this story a lot. Like, do not get me wrong, I really enjoyed the creativity in this. Like the house, they describe kind of like as a quilt, and like there are lots of different like pieces to this house. And I think it's really cool how like the house keeps changing, and I loved that piece of it. But as far as Beauty and the Beast retellings go, this was definitely not my favorite. I think I give this 3 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. I wanted more. I wanted more Beauty and the Beast. I think if I had known going into this that this was a mixture of other myths or other stories as well, then I would have had a little bit more of an open mind. But just so you know, this is about a girl. When she was young, a wolf like slashed at her and so left like these scars down her face. And because of that, she has really never been accepted into her community. She's definitely an outcast, and people think that she's like from the devil or whatever, and so she's never really accepted. And so her father owns a bookstore, and she spends most of her time there. He ends up remarrying a woman, and he has to leave for a little bit, and he's gone for like 6 months or something like that. And she ends up going into the woods, and she finds him near death, and there is a wolf who is there, and he says that if she promises to come live with him for a year, he will ensure that her father makes it home safely. So she agrees, and she goes and she lives with him. And then obviously the plot continues, and that's how it's like very similar to Beauty and the Beast. So it also reminded me a little bit of like Cupid and Psyche. Like she cannot see him at night. So if you're familiar with that Greek story, there's that element in here as well. So like I said, I did enjoy this. I was kind of thrown because I was not expecting like other stories to be mixed in. 3 out of 5. It was a good, enjoyable read, but definitely not my favorite Beauty and the Beast retelling. So the last book that I have for you is actually the webtoon, and I'll leave a picture here. I'll also leave a link to the webtoon in my description box down below. So this is called Lore Olympus, and this is a Greek mythology webtoon, and it's like the story of Hades, and I absolutely love this story. Like love this. I gave this 5 out of 5. I'm obsessed. Every Sunday I'm going on to read the next section. If you like Greek mythology, definitely check this out. So this is about a fertility goddess who is so they like modernized Greek mythology. So there's like cities and everything like that, and Hades is, you know, the guardian of the underworld, and so he is like running the show down there, and it's actually like a city, and it's pretty cool. And so I don't really know how to tell you this, but it's like a modern retelling of like Greek mythology. So you have all of your, you know, gods and goddesses that you know and love. You have probably even some that you haven't even heard of. And so anyway, you have like this fertility goddess who's like moving to the city for the first time, and she ends up like working for Hades, and there's like a little bit of like a steamy romance thing going on. There is a rape that happens in here, so like just keep that in mind for a trigger warning. But I absolutely am in love with this webtoon. I am obsessed. I'm always going and checking it out. It took me a couple hours to read. I think there are like 60 episodes up right now. So if you enjoy webtoons, definitely check out this one. It's definitely one of my favorites. So here are all the physical books that I read during the month of May. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and hit subscribe, and I'll be back with more bookish videos soon. As always, keep reading!